OpenAI has released GPT 5.1, an upgrade to its flagship model series, and this is designed to make ChatGPT both smarter and more conversational. So, this update focuses on user feedback that AI should be more enjoyable to talk to. And as a result, OpenAI is essentially introducing two upgraded models. So, the first is GPT 5.1 Instant. So, that's kind of the most used version in the model router. It's now described as warmer and better at following instructions. It's also gaining something called adaptive reasoning, which is allowing it to think before responding to challenging questions. The second model, GPT 5.1 Thinking, is the advanced reasoning version. It now adapts its speed, responding faster to simple queries while spending more time on complex ones. OpenAI says its responses are also clearer with less jargon and a more empathetic tone. Alongside these new models, OpenAI is adding new tone presets, things like a professional voice, a candid personality, a quirky one to make customization easier. The GPT 5.1 update is rolling out now, starting with paid users, and will be available in the API as well. Now, Paul, I'm curious what jumped out to you most about this release. I really kind of made notes to myself here about their big emphasis on the personality, the tone, how people interact with these tools. And we've talked about that before, but that really struck me how much time they spent talking about that in this release.
That definitely jumped out. The timing, as I mentioned in the open, jumped out to me. It was just an unusual timing. I was trying to think if they've done a point 0.1 before. Like usually there's like a
Yeah,
point 0.5, right?
like
It's
point
like,
five. Yeah.
yeah, 3 to 3.5. So it's just an unusual numbering sequence. My understanding is it's the same core model. They've just done some tuning to it, and specifically like encoding and math and like reasoning and personality. So they're basically just building on the existing model. It's not like they retrained a full blown model and then released it. So um, yeah, I think the timing's interesting just because I assume that means something else is coming from the other labs and they wanted to get something out ahead of it. I've played around with it a little bit. Again,
Yep.
the use cases I was using it for the last few days, not a noticeable change for me. I did note that GPT-5 Pro, which I know you and I both pay for the upgraded license, so we have access to Pro. That is still at the GPT-5 level, but they did say they will update GPT-5 Pro to 5.1 Pro soon as well. The personality thing, we definitely have talked about that in recent months. Sam Altman in particular has been very direct that is one of the things they see as being essential for future AI assistants, is that people can better control. Do you mess with that stuff at all, Mike? Do you play around with the personality settings, the tone at all? Have you tried them?
I test it, but I don't stick with any of it because it just creates such variance in the use case.
Yeah.
I'm trying, I will, I rely more, I would say, on my prompts for it to put on a certain persona or
Okay.
tone. Yeah.
I'm probably the same way. I think I went in when they first started doing it and like played around a little bit. But yeah, it's like when I go in there, I have very specific things I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to do them very efficiently.
Yeah.
And I'm not just messing around with like, okay, let me give it the same prompt 5 different ways and try all these personalities. So, but I also don't talk to it like a companion. So I guess I don't really use it in the sense where I'm trying to like elicit this very specific ongoing personality from it. I just wanted to answer questions. I will say I had a weird conversation with ChatGPT last week though, Mike, using voice mode. And I
Mm.
don't know if I talked about this on the podcast or not, but it will vary from a female voice and then it sort of blends into a male voice and then it'll come back around to the female voice.
Really?
And I actually called it because it's kind of like eerie, like it sort of messes with you when you're hearing it. And I actually said to it, I was like, why is your voice moving from like feminine to
Mm.
masculine? And it's like, oh, sorry, it's just like part of the process. And like, and it like gave an explanation. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But yeah, I've noticed it multiple times to the point where I finally said something to the voice agent, like, why is it changing? It's really weird. It's unnerving, honestly. I
That's
stopped
really
using it
strange.
when it was happening. Um, so then they did say that there's beyond the presets for users who want more granular control over how ChatGPT responds. We're also experimenting with the ability to tune characteristics directly from personalization settings, including how concise, warm, or scannable its responses are, and how frequently it uses emojis. ChatGPT can also proactively offer to update these preferences during conversations when it notices you asking for a certain tone or style without requiring you to navigate into the settings. Yeah, so they're just trying to get way more predictive about like
Mm.
how people interact with these things. Um, The only other couple notes I had was that they seem to underplay the improvement of this model. And Sam Altman actually responded to somebody's tweet about this, and he said it was kind of intentional because they found that they get crushed when they like make a big release, and then people are like, oh, it's not as significant a change. So now they're basically just like lowballing everybody, like put this out there, and then like 24 hours, 48 hours go by, and people are like, wait a second, this is actually like a pretty good improvement over 5. So I thought it was interesting that they sort of took a different approach with this. But again, it's a point 0.1 model. Like it's not supposed to be a massive increase. And then the other thing I know you and I both looked at was this prompting guide. Now it's
Yeah.
meant more for developers. We'll put the link in the show notes, but they did release a prompting guide, maybe more thorough than the system card. Like they got some blowback online about how the system card maybe wasn't as sophisticated as some of the past ones. But the prompting guide gives a little bit of guidance. Again, it's more for reference sake if you're not a developer, just to see how they guide developers to program the personality, how to make it more steerable. And so they actually give sample prompts. Like it's like, okay, they start off one where they say, you value clarity, momentum, and respect measured by usefulness rather than pleasantries. Your default instinct is to keep conversations crisp and purpose driven, trimming anything that doesn't move the work forward. You're not cold. You're simply economy minded with language. And then it talks about adaptive politeness, core inclination, where you speak with grounded directness. So again, if you don't understand the fundamentals of these models and that they generally behave how you tell them to behave, sometimes looking at these very descriptive system prompts that OpenAI or Anthropic or others guide people on helps you realize how much goes into the personality of these things with just your direction. And that's, again, it's weird for people who maybe haven't studied these models before.
Yeah, it's fascinating to consider how much of a, I call it a competitive advantage or moat, a model has based on its personality, if any, because it
Yeah.
really does seem like from the way they've positioned this and the way they're talking about it, that's a huge concern for
Yeah.
many, many, many users, which is really interesting to think about.
Yeah. So again, go check it out, try it. Like what Mike and I always talk about is like have your standard use cases, and then rather than relying on benchmarks or system cards from the model companies, like have the thing you do each time. Go into the new model and do that thing again. So have those go-to prompts for yourself, where it's like a new model comes out. Let me test my standard use case or workflow that I normally go through and pop it in there and see how you feel about it. Seems like writing, personality, coding. So if you're not writing code, you're not going to notice much there. But the thinking one, it's chain of thought, its ability to do, human-like reasoning. Those seems to be the areas. So I've been pushing it a little bit on some of these deeper thought things, like
Yeah.
just trying to see how it works there.